feel good.
Okay, so welcome to this latest Ecto-1 build. Now this is the special, and this is actually going to be the, I'm trying to get the correct wording, this is going to be 4 proton packs and 1 ghost trap. Now, a big thank you to Mark's Mods, who had me crying down the phone to him. I did actually make one before. I only wanted to build one on camera, and I actually built one before off camera, and I'm screaming down the phone. I'm like, oh, half the bits are missing. And he explained to me that when you receive this, I'm trying to get the title into view here, you only actually receive half of them. So this is going to be part 1. And where we're going to build 2 proton packs. Obviously I'll only build 1, and the instructions only go, you actually get all of the instructions. I'm just going to show you this. So there's the end of the proton pack, and then stage 7 goes into assembling the ghost trap body, and then you've got 2 more stages there. You don't receive those parts, so I will be completing this build next month after I've received all the parts. So we will just be building a single proton pack today. So let's go through the parts list. So we have, I'm just going to call these A, B, C, D, etc. because they all begin S1. So we have A, proton pack body, B, proton pack body rear, C is Alice LC1 pack frame, D is the bumper, E is the ion arm front, F is the ion arm rear, G is the vacuum pump, H is the particle thrower, I is the particle thrower rear plate, and J is the Clipard Minimatic modular valve R701. Now K is the long red hose. And it's important to note that everything that I talk about you receive 4 parts for, unless I say otherwise. The long red hose part K, you actually receive 8. The rest we will receive 4. So that's the L, the long black hose, M, the long blue hose, N, the short blue hose, O, short red hose, P, short black hose, and then you get Q, which is the vacuum hose. So then on to the rest of the parts where you only receive 1 of, and that's R, the ghost trap body, S, the ghost trap base, T, the handle, U, the pedal housing, V, pedal vector plate, W, RT box, X, the pedal base, Y, vacuum hose 2, Z, the bar graph, and AA, the top doors. And then you also receive BP screws, which are 1.5 by 4 millimeters, EP screws 1.7 by 4 millimeters, HP 2 by 4 millimeters, and IP 2 by 5 millimeters. So the best advice I can give anybody is the parts, most of the parts are self-explanatory. Let me just show you a random part of the instructions. So there you can see you've got S1D and S1A. You can figure out from those instructions which part is which. However, when it comes to hoses, I just need to find one with some hoses. There we go. So as we get later on in the instructions, you see, because they use yellow to say these are the parts we've included, a top tip that I would give you, you see here I've taken all the hoses out, and I've labelled them. So we've got S1K, L, M, N, O and P. Now it does, as I say, it says in the instructions that there's 8 of those and 4 of those. Obviously you only need 1 per proton pack. So let's begin with stage 1, and the parts that you will need for stage 1 is this piece here, S1A, and you will also need this bracket here. Now the screws I've actually put already in a container. We will need HP screws, and that does not want to come out. Oh dear. Right, don't you hate when that happens? Right, no, I thought that came. There we go. So, and all we're going to do is we're going to place, you see there's a hole there. No, sorry, I've got it the wrong way around. So you've got these 4 red dots, and all we're going to do, you cannot place this the wrong way. You've got you've got a screw hole there, and you've got a locating pin, and there you have a hole and a locating pin, and that's the only way you can pop that in. As you see, it is directional because of that little label. And all we're going to do, we're going to take a single HP screw onto our screwdriver, and I think it might be easier if I change the camera angle. Sorry, I'm still playing with these new cameras. So all we're going to do is pop the screw into the back there. I think I'll go back to this view. So that goes into there like that, and that screwdriver head is far too small. I'm getting quite a lot of slippage, so I do apologise. I thought I had my parts ready before I began. Okay, there we go. So we just screw that in, and there we go. So I've just screwed it until it begins to give a lot more resistance, and I can see actually I've not screwed it in because I don't know if you can see the locating peg has come out. That's not a problem. We'll just loosen that off, and then we will just, there we go, that's the locating peg back in. So I'm just going to hold it down at the back, and I'll just give it a few more turns. That may explain why it was a little bit stiff to get in. There we go. Now, because it's plastic, if you over tighten it will split it, but I think that's in perfect. So on to stage 2, and we need to pop this to one side. Obviously if you're doing this the second time, it's going to be easier because you're going to already have the parts. So this is the part we need, S1E, and it's, if we turn it over so that you can see these lines there, you've also got this line going across the top, of which this side is bigger, the left hand side is bigger than the right. And then we also need this little L-shaped piece, and that's going to fit into there quite nicely. You can see the screw holes there and on there, and we place those in like so, and we require 2 EP screws. So there's one. I do find organising my screws like this does help. Now because I've got 2 screws, I'm only going to put the first one in just a little bit, so now I can't remove that piece. That's not coming off. It's not fully tight. But now when I put the second one in, this one can go all the way. And that's as far as I dare. It's just got quite stiff now. And then this one to match, and then what I want to do now is get something just to see if that's loose. So something very, yeah, that's got no give at all. So obviously I can put it there as well. That's fine. I'm really happy with that. So the next stage then, still keeping with the EP screws, we need to take the piece from the previous stage, we need to turn it over, and you see on the side there's a line. This little tab here with 2 holes in it, that's going to go into there. Now you've got the bottom of the pack there, you've got all the insides, and you need this long bit pointing downwards. That will just slip into there like so, and getting your first EP screw just like before, and that slipped. We just pop the first one in just like that, so that it's not going to fall totally out. Then we can get our second one, and I think looking at the number of EP screws, I think that's finished with EP screws now for this build. So this one is going in, there we go, and then this one just to catch up. Right, and that's in nicely. So let's have a look at the progress so far. So that's what we've got. I'll just maneuver the light around a bit. So it's looking pretty good after only 2 stages. So stage 3, this is a slightly tricky one. We require this piece SG1, and this is a triangle, a T shape, and it's got one sealed side. It's got a small gap there and a small gap there, and what we want to do is on this gap on the side we need to be taking S1Q, which is this spring, and what we need to, and this is the tricky bit, we need to place that screw inside that hole, and the easiest way to do that is to place it in and twist it, because the way that a spring is made, it kind of is a big spiral, so it's very, very similar in principle to a screw, but the problem with this one is if you work it too hard, it actually will change in size. It can actually, well, like a spring really. So there we go, I've twisted that in, and what I'm going to do, let's see, I've given that a gentle push, and it's come out. Sorry, bear with me a sec. My computer decided, or my printer software decided to do an update just as I was recording, which is a little bit inconvenient. Right, so let's screw that in again. Again, you could always pop a touch of glue into this if you wanted to, but the one that I made earlier, there we go, that's a lot better. The one I made earlier didn't require any glue. So this needs to go into, there's a hole there, and what it's going to do is it's going to eventually, see there's a hole there and a hole there, this is going to come in round, and the spring is going to go into that hole. So again, same as before, let's screw this into place if it wants to go, which I don't think it does. Do you know, I've set up what I call a body cam and also an overhead cam. I think I actually need a desk that's a camera that's looking up. Right, there we go. I've manipulated that as much as I can, and that's not coming out with a little bit of force. So what we need to do now, that needs to come straight down and then around to there. Now it's not going to hold that well to begin with, but I think that that's actually not a bad position. And then what we want to do is we want to secure that with an HP screw. At the moment I'm just holding this down with my finger. I should have got this screw ready before we began this stage, but I didn't, so I've got to live with any consequences. So you see we're holding it down there. The other end is actually this hole there. You can see you've got one on the left, and we want that second one with the big circle around it. So just get this screw in properly. So Right, so I've got that in just enough to bite, so we can let go. We can look at the position. Are we happy with it? Yes, I am. So let's continue. Continue with it. And there you go, that's in nicely. So I'm very happy with that. Right, so on to stage 4, and this time we need piece S1H. Now this looks like, can we call this a gun-like piece? And it's got a big spring, and you see that on the end the spring has been purposely pushed in to create a gap. That is for a reason. And then what we need to be doing is taking this piece S1I, and that needs to be going into there, and you will see that there's a hole and a locating peg, and there are 2 holes on there. So obviously you know what's going to happen. This locating peg wants to be going into that hole like so, and that will be secured with an HP screw. I'm just going to switch my heads over just to see if this smaller one will do the job better. We'll find out in a moment, because sometimes you want a nice wide head to sort of grab the screw head. Sometimes you want a smaller one that can get deeper down into the screw, and that actually has done the job. So that is not moving at all, so I would call that a good job. The next thing we want is S1J, which is this piece here, and it's got a little silver end on it and a peg, and there we go. So got to find the hole for that. So there we go, we've got a small hole there where this little silver part is, and this peg just goes into there like that. Now it is a push fit connection, but you can kind of feel it working in there. As you can see, it's not going to come out easily. It almost clicks in. And then lastly, what we need to do, and again this is the reason why it's really important to label your hoses. So we want S1P, which is a short black hose, which is this one. Then what we need to do, you probably see it better there. Let me get my pointy stick. So you have a little bit pointing up there and a little bit pointing across there. We need to attach this hose to both ends. Now normally what you do is you just gently slide it on, twisting it if necessary, but I have found that some of these, it's as though the hose is slightly smaller on some, and this is probably the case. Sometimes it's easier to put them on with tweezers. Sometimes you can just push them on, and in this particular case I've been able to push them on. Tweezers are great, but unfortunately tweezers do nip it, and if you're pushing against the sides it's going to be harder to slide on. But that's half of the hose on, and what we want to do is just bring this round and down to make a sort of a circle, and I can't see a thing because I've got the wrong glasses on, so I'm actually doing this one by feel. So I think what I'll do is at the end of this stage I will stop the video, change my glasses, and then restart it. Okay, this one I am having difficulty with, so I have a trick. So what we do is we take a cocktail stick. Now this cocktail stick, the very point is actually smaller than the hole on the hose, but as you can see it tapers up to much bigger, so that makes it useful for us. So we can actually use this cocktail stick to stretch it. So what I'm going to do is I'm pushing this onto the cocktail stick, and then I'm just going to pull it off, and then we'll see if that fits. Now the great thing about plastic is it kind of has a memory. So we have made that a little bit big. But what will happen if we leave it overnight, it will kind of shrink back to its original size. So it will be a little bit tighter in the morning. And there we go, that's gone on perfectly. So I have, it's a word we used to use at school called mullered. I've kind of mullered that a little bit. I've managed to repair it, but that is stage 4 complete. So now the fun begins with stage 5, and I'm just changing my glasses. Even though I said I was going to stop the camera, I didn't. So what we need to do now, let's pop this to one side, and we need to fix 3 hoses, 4 hoses to this. 5 hoses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the first time I did this, I will confess, I did say a few swear words, but with the discovery of the cocktail stick trick, it made it very, very easier. And this time around we have labeled our wires. So let's start with the easiest, which is going to be S1K, which is going to run from, it might be easier if I do overhead. So we have a nodule there, and then that's going to run, you see down there we've got 2 nodules, and it needs to run to what I would call the top one, or the middle one actually. So you've got this tall one there, ignore that, 2 down there. Trying to catch the light to see it. There we go, can you just see it down there? And that's going to run that way. So S1K is a red one. Now red is the colour I had the most trouble with when I built it. It's as though the red ones are slightly shorter, slightly narrower. So we'll see how we get on with these ones. And that's not wanting to go. So let's try. To be honest with you, I would do this one first, because that's going to be the trickier one to do. You can't really get tweezers in there. Right, so we're going to have to do the cocktail stick trick. Now, I said before, push that on, but what I actually found before is if I breathe on it, I can just push it a little tiny bit more. So now if any of you are as old as me, you may remember a comedy duo called Hinge and Bracket. Now I used to absolutely love them, and one of the things they used to do was they used to clean their glasses, and when they breathed on their glasses they'd go ah, and it just reminded me of that. Right, so that has actually not gone on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tweezers, and I'm just going to leave just enough, about the length of a peg, and we can push those on, and ooh, I do believe that's gone on. Lovely. So that's the first end on. I'll just give that another, what I'd call a belt and braces push, just to make sure it's on. Right, so this one wants to come across this little circular bit there, and then up, and then straight down onto that one. I don't think that's going to fit, so I shall do my cocktail and breathing trick. So on there like that, then a quick it's just the breath, the warmth of your breath just seems to warm it a bit and just makes it easier to manipulate. Right, so we'll pop that into the tweezers, and we'll bring that round, and you might see this one a bit better. There we go. That's gone on really nicely actually. Perfect, perfect. So it does need to go like that, but I think that will kind of get trained as we go. So the next one I want to put on is S1K, which is another red one, and that's going into, there's a little peg next to the previous one, and that's going to come down across and then into that hole there. Again, I think the lesson of the day here is, or the preach of the day, is study the instructions. So there's the cocktail in. Obviously putting your hands on them as well works equally well, because the warmth of your hand can warm them up. So onto the tweezers. This is probably a long build, by the way. How long will be? Yeah, it's 20 minutes so far. In fact, to be honest with you, I might stop part way through this and we could continue when we do the ghost traps. Right, that's on. That's lovely. So now this wants to come across like that, and then it wants to do a 90 degrees into the peg there. So pop it into your tweezers. Remember, you always need to load your tweezers up into the position that would be easier when you've fitted the part. So that's the angle I want to be coming into there, like so, and we gently push that on, and because we've stretched the tube ever so slightly, it's working really well. There we go. Now, don't know if you can see them, but there's a few little marks that's caused by the tweezers. Don't worry about it, because if you look there, they've actually gone. So right, that's the second tube in place. The next one is S1L, which is going to run from there all the way across to there. And the reason we put this one in last is because it actually goes over the two red ones. So see if we can get it in. I think last time I did this without the need for cocktail sticks and breathing, and actually it looks like this is going to go in again, so that's fine. The problem I have is if it goes in easily, does it mean it will fall out easily? Right, so that's going to go across there. So we need to load up our tweezers. Because of the angle of approach, I'm not going to be able to do that with my fingers. So there's quite a lot of tweezers work on this, I'm afraid. So bring that like that. Now at this stage we don't need to be putting the tubes all in the right direction, just so long as we put them on in a way that we can sort that out later. There we go, that's on. So that's going to come down like that. You see it goes over the red wire. Okay, so for the second half of this we need to turn it over so that it's this way round, and now we want to just do some work on this one. So again, I can use my previous one as a point of reference. Now the top one, you see you've got two pegs. I'm trying to find, there we go. So you see two pegs there and two pegs there. So top one going to the top one, bottom one going to the bottom one, and the top one will be S10, which is a red one, and this is obviously the harder one. Be very careful, because as you read these instructions, because the word S1N is written higher up on the magazine. In fact, I will show you. Because the way they've written it, it looks like S1N is on top of S10. But if you look, S1N is pointing to the lower wire and S10 is pointing to the higher wire. It's just a little slightly bit confusing, but not, it's just a case of study the magazine, please. So, and I apologise for bringing the magazine into the shot. You know I don't like to do that, but I think in this case it's easier. So just widen that, and I didn't even test this because I know this red wire is not going to be big enough. There we go. Look at, see how easy that went on. The only problem obviously is that if it goes on that easily, will it come on? It shouldn't come off, because by the time we get to the morning, and can you see that peg's, oh, it is going on. That's a surprise. Right, so that's made my life easier. There we go. So that's the red wire arm, and the next one will be S1N, which is the blue wire, and that's going into the bottom one, and we'll see if we can get this one in with our fingers. I think it will go, but it's tricky, so I will just use my tweezers. It's obviously easy if we can do it without tweezers, but if tweezers is the way we have to go, then so be it. So we'll just pop the other end in, and this is quite awkward because we've already got the previous wire in. I might have that too high up actually. It's quite amazing that just holding it at 1 millimeter slightly different position can make the job so much easier or harder. No, that doesn't want to go in. It's interesting that, isn't it? You've got one peg that was easy and one peg that's difficult. So just put the cocktail stick in. And oh, it's gone straight in, no bother. Lovely. Right, so that's the wires. Now what a difference those wires have made. So just give that a little bit of a bend just to bring that down, and then that can go over like that, and then that gives us the last stage, which we need to be working on the underneath. Now this part I thought was slightly tricky to get going. Once you've got the first screw in place and you've got the first screw in the correct place, the rest is easy. So what we need now is this part that we did in the previous stage, and what we're going to do is we're going, see where you've got that hole, and there's a little hole there, and we want to just hang that over the side. You see how the edge, the actual spring bit, you see how it's a line going up. You need it that direction. Pop it into there, over that little hole. Is it that hole or is it this one? No, I tell a lie, it's actually over this one. I apologise, I've got it wrong. So this piece, piece S1B, it's going to go onto there like so, but it's going to trap that spring on here. So what we need to do is hang this over the edge like that. Very carefully we need to place that into the hole. Can you see how it squashed that in there? Now for that reason, the very first screw that we need to screw in is this one here that's closest, and that's why I've got my screw ready, because we've got lots of fragile wires that could come off. But once we get this in, preferably with the correct screwdriver head, I must write down all the different screwdriver heads to use with all the different screws. So normally I only put this one in just enough to bite, but I want this to stay in place, so I've put it in fully. It does run the risk of it bending, but it's plastic, so I think we'll get away with that on this occasion. But my second screw is going to be the opposite corner. It's always the opposite corner from the first one, and then that one can go in like so. And I heard a little bit of clicking. It felt like this piece was coming into place, so it could well be that I didn't quite get the back in absolutely right, and then by screwing that second screw in the diagonal, it just brought it all into place, which is exactly why I do diagonals. Okay. And then the final screw, which doesn't want to go in. There we go. Now I really like the design of these, because you can see there it's got 4 ugly screws on the back. However, if we now look at the next stage, or sorry, figure C, we now bring this little pack in. Remember, it has to go a certain way up, and we hold this upside down in the orientation that this spring is coming out from the bottom left, and we want this so that, if you imagine this is 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, we want the screw holes in section 2 and 3, and the upturned bit is section 1. And then there's also a locating peg there. Can you see it there? And that's going to go into that hole there, and that leaves the second one as a screw hole. So at the moment we can rotate it however we want, but once we pop the first HP screw in, and let's go close to the locating peg, I think, just to try and keep that in. And then we'll pop the second screw in, and that should line everything up. Don't know what's going on with my screwdriver bits, so alright, I don't like that at all. Do you have one of those days where everything's going wrong? I think that is it as well, because also in addition I can see a leftover piece, so I have actually missed one stage out in the instructions. So right, I can see there that I've actually put this screw in at an angle, so I will remove it and replace it. That would explain why I was having difficulty. And that's going in lovely. Really pleased with that now. So that's on solid. So let's do a little bit of work. I can see exactly what I've done wrong now. So I've actually missed a single stage out, and we've got this. So going back to the previous stage, stage 5, this needs to come out of there, and then that will go round like that into there, and then it will go down and round, do a 180-degree turn, and it will go into that hole there. So I think I will start with this hole, and we will try and place it in with the tweezers first. I think that will make my life so much easier if it goes in with tweezers. Sorry guys, I'm trying to keep on the camera. There we go. That's great. That's going to make my life so much easier. So that's going to do a 180-degree turn, and then it will come round there like so, and then it will do a 180-degree-ish turn to go straight down like so. Obviously it won't sit like this because it never does, unless this wire was actually bent, you know, permanently in a certain position. So if anyone knows how to do that, that would be a useful skill to learn. I wonder if it's like the wrapping paper principle. What my mother used to do when she wrapped Christmas presents, she would get little strands of ribbon and she would run her finger along it and it would all curl up. And I wonder if we could apply the same principle here. Having said that, I'm not unhappy with that. It could be better, but it does run in the right places. So there we go, guys. So that is actually the Proton pack finished. And this is the one that I've done in a previous, well, I didn't do it in the previous issue. And you can see they both look roughly the same. The wires are the correct colours, they go in the same positions, and yeah, I'm really happy. So this is special pack 1, and you know, when it came through at 20 something pounds, I was a little bit, wow, that's a lot of money. But you do actually get 2 of them, so they're a tenner each, so I don't think that's awful. And the next pack you actually get, these again, both of these, and you get a trap, ghost trap. So I think I will do the second stage of this in a month's time or 4 weeks time. I won't build these, I will build the other 2 off camera, and then I can then do the ghost trap on camera. Yeah, so then that will be it finished. So I hope you've enjoyed my little video. So yeah, carry on watching if you can. Like, share, subscribe, all the rest of it that goes with it. If I've given you any good tips, please tell me, because then I'll know to give you, you know, any other tips that I discover, as I love giving tips if I've got any to give. If you thought they're not very good, just tell me and I'll just keep my mouth shut. So take care, guys, and I hope to see you in another video.